Rain always made the city feel softer, like a murmur instead of a scream. Leon had come to rely on those days, where neon lights blurred into watercolor puddles, and the air smelled like wet concrete and something almost alive. He sat on the window ledge of his cramped apartment, nursing the last lukewarm swig of synthetic coffee. Another evening blurred into night, unremarkable in every way, until the knock came. It was soft, rhythmic, not the impatient pounding of a delivery drone, not the casual buzz of a friend. He didn't move at first, just stared at the door, waiting for it to go away. It didn't. Another knock. Same rhythm, 3 soft taps, a pause, 3 more. He stood, muscles tensing for reasons he couldn't explain. The hallway camera had gone, dark last week, part of the building's general decay. No one fixed things around here anymore. He approached the door, hesitated, then opened it. She stood there like a dream drawn in glass and starlight. Tall, almost too tall for the frame. Her skin was a pale iridescence that shimmered when it caught the flickering hallway light. Her hair, silver with hints of blue, floated lightly around her shoulders as if underwater, and her eyes, those wide violet eyes, locked onto his with the precision of a targeting system and the vulnerability of a forgotten child. "Leon Averis," she said. Her voice was music and steel. "That's me," he replied, throat dry. "I am Avalora of Volantis." She stepped inside without being invited, not rudely, but with the certainty of someone acting on ancient tradition. "You've been matched, with me." "Matched," Leon echoed. "What, like, dating?" Her gaze didn't waver. "Bonded. Soul-linked. Cosmically compatible, according to the Council's genealogic compatibility protocol. You are now mine." He blinked. "I think you've got the wrong apartment." Avalora looked around. Her expression revealed nothing, but she examined the peeling wallpaper and rusting fan like she was scanning a battlefield. The coordinates were precise. "This is correct." He half laughed, half exhaled. "What does that mean? Did I sign up for this?" "You were selected. I didn't apply for anything. You didn't need to." She walked over to his bookshelf and trailed her fingers along the dusty spines of old print books. Her touch was careful, reverent. Leon crossed his arms. "Okay, Avalora, or whoever you really are. This some kind of intergalactic prank show? Are there hidden cameras? I don't even have a passport." She turned to him. "You are scared." "Of course I'm scared. You just told me you claimed me." "I claimed no one. The match chose for us. I came to honor it." He swallowed, hard, because suddenly the joke didn't feel like one. There was no glint of cruelty in her face, no deception. Just calm certainty and something else, something deeper. A longing. "I've never even left Earth," he said, voice lower now. "Why me?" "Because you fit the fracture," she replied, "the place where my soul splinters." Leon didn't have a comeback for that. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the soft hum of broken streetlights and the occasional hiss of tires slicing through wet roads below. Avalora stepped closer. Not enough to threaten, but enough for him to smell her, like ozone and rain and something that didn't exist on this planet. Her hand hovered just above his chest. "May I?" He didn't know what he was agreeing to when he nodded, but the moment her fingers brushed his shirt, something sharp and electric surged through him. Images flickered behind his eyes, stars rushing past, a blue moon over a glass, ocean, 2 children laughing in a language he didn't understand. It lasted only a second, but when it was over, his knees felt weak. She caught him before he fell. Her hands were warm. "What did you just do?" "Shared a memory. The first of many." "I didn't ask for that." "No," she said. "But you didn't push me away." Leon sat down hard on the couch. The old cushions sighed under him. Avalora watched him carefully, head tilted just slightly, like a wolf in silver silk trying to understand a puzzle it had never seen before. "So, what now?" he asked. "Now," she said, taking a seat across from him. We begin to learn what the bond wants from us. He looked at her again, really looked. And for the first time since the door opened, he didn't feel fear. He felt wonder. And something else creeping in like warmth in winter, curiosity. The alien girl who claimed him smiled, small and quiet, and Leon, for the first time in years, smiled back. It took less than a week for Leon to stop questioning the strange rhythms of his new life. He stopped waking in disbelief and started anticipating her quiet footsteps in the hall, the way she sat on the windowsill before sunrise, her silver hair catching the pale light like frost on glass. Avalora existed with a kind of grace that didn't feel performative. It felt woven into her being. She didn't ask questions like humans did. She simply listened, even in silence. Leon found that disarming. Their days settled into an unspoken routine. She explored his world with a kind of quiet reverence, and he tried, often clumsily, to explain everything she pointed to. She seemed fascinated by the mundane: washing machines, street art, traffic lights. One afternoon she stood under a subway vent just to feel the warm air blast through her hair. He couldn't help but laugh, and when she looked at him, smiling, in that rare, honest way, something small and hidden in him began to shift. Avalora didn't eat food the way he did. Her energy came from light, water, and something in the atmosphere he couldn't detect. Still, she asked to join him during meals, watching curiously as he cooked. He made simple things: soups, rice dishes, grilled sandwiches. She smelled everything. Sometimes she dipped a finger in just to taste a fragment. "You make things with care," she observed one evening. "I make them because I have to eat," he replied, chopping herbs. "Still," she said, "there is art in it." She started, leaving small things on the table in return. A shard of what looked like crystal, humming faintly when touched. A perfectly smooth black stone that pulsed with internal heat. Once, she placed a folded piece of paper next to his plate. Inside was a perfect sketch of his face, eyes closed, asleep on the couch. He didn't remember her drawing it. But he remembered the way her eyes softened when he looked at it, the way she didn't ask for praise. That night, she fell asleep next to him on the floor, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. He didn't move for hours. The city moved on, outside uncaring and electric. But in the small hush of his apartment, something else bloomed, quiet as breath and just as essential. On the 5th night, she asked him a question that changed everything. "Have you ever bonded before?" Leon looked up from his book. "You mean relationships?" "Yes," she said softly. "Mergings? Heart connections?" He set the book down. "Once, years ago. It didn't end well." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Pain leaves long, echoes in Valanthian minds. We are taught to honor it, not erase it." Leon exhaled slowly. "I guess I never really figured out what I did wrong." She moved closer. "Would you like to know what I see?" He hesitated, then nodded. Avalora placed her hand over his heart, not dramatically, just gently. And in that moment she wasn't touching skin, she was reaching through it. He didn't see memories or visions this time, he felt them. His own. The silent grief of losing his sister when he was 16. The helplessness of sitting in a hospital room with no control. The long nights after, filled with a kind of weight that no one else could lift. The guilt of surviving, of smiling too soon, of not smiling at all. And she felt it with him, without fear, without pity. When she pulled her hand back, her eyes shimmered. But she didn't speak. She just leaned in and pressed her forehead gently to his. It was the first time he had let anyone all the way in. It didn't break him, it made him whole. They didn't speak of it again, but something between them changed, less like falling in love and more like remembering it. The next evening, he taught her to dance. They moved the furniture to the edges of the room and played old music from a battered speaker. She copied his steps carefully, her movements fluid but cautious, as though afraid of misstepping in a world that had never been hers. Leon didn't lead. He followed. And somewhere in that motion, they began to move in sync. Laughter came more easily. Smiles arrived unbidden. Touch became natural, his hand on her back, her fingers brushing his wrist. Later that night, sitting side by side on the rooftop, Avalora asked him a question she had clearly held back. Would you choose me if the bond didn't require it? Leon stared at the horizon where the sky had turned a dusky pink. He didn't answer right away. He thought about how strange his life had become, how unpredictable, how suddenly alive. Then he looked at her. I think, he said quietly. I already did. She didn't speak, but her hand found his, and her fingers curled around his like roots searching for soil. They sat that way until the stars came out. Neither of them noticed the dark shimmer high above the clouds. A vessel, silent and cloaked, shifting closer, watching. The match was never just a union. It was the beginning of something far bigger than either of them understood. But for now, all that mattered was this. She was here. He was hers. And the bond had already begun to burn. The days that followed wove themselves into a delicate tapestry of trust and growing intimacy. There were no declarations, no grand promises, only the quiet, powerful certainty of shared presence. Leon learned to read the small flickers in Avalora's eyes, the subtle tilt of her head when she was curious or concerned. She learned the cadence of his breath, the way his fingers drummed restlessly against tabletops when he was deep in thought. The bond between them was no longer something abstract. It lived in the spaces between words, in the glances held too long, in the way their hands found each other without needing to search. But the peace did not last. It began with a tremor, a low, keening sound at the edge of Leon's hearing that made him jolt awake one night. Avalora sat up beside him instantly, eyes narrowed. She wasn't hearing with her ears, she was sensing something deeper, something primal. They've come, she said softly. Leon's heart stumbled. Who? Ex-cordon scouts. Enforcement. Units. The name meant little to him, but the fear in her voice pierced straight through. Without waiting, she rose and crossed the room in quick, fluid strides, gathering small devices from the drawer where she kept them hidden. They gleamed, in the moonlight, slivers of alien technology humming faintly with power. Leon stood still groggy. What do they want? They seek to undo the match. That's insane. You said the council approved it. Not all factions agreed. Her voice tightened. Some see cross-species bonds as contamination, a dilution of the pure line. Leon ran a hand through his hair, trying to process the flood of information. So what happens if they find us? They will separate us, she said simply. By force. Permanently. Panic clawed at him, sharp and immediate. He crossed the room and grabbed her arm, forcing her to meet his gaze. No, we fight. Avalora looked at him, and for a moment he saw the weight of centuries in her eyes, the terrible burden of hope, of loss, of fighting battles she had no certainty of winning. But then, slowly, she nodded. Together, they climbed to the rooftop. The Bam. City sprawled below them, an ocean of darkened towers and scattered lights. Above, the clouds churned unnaturally, shapes forming within them, angular, wrong, predatory. Leon caught sight of something materializing against the stars. A ship, sleek and black, almost liquid in form. It descended silently like a blade, slipping between ribs. Avalora handed him a small device. It was warm to the touch, vibrating against his palm. Defense shield, she explained. Short range, fragile, but better than nothing. He gripped it tightly, heart hammering. The ship hovered lower until it blotted out part of the night sky. Then, without warning, 3 figures descended, a trio of shadows wrapped in metallic armor, their faces hidden behind featureless masks. They landed without a sound, standing with an eerie stillness that spoke of deadly purpose. Avalora stepped forward, her voice ringing clear across the rooftop. You have no authority here. This world recognizes the bond. One of the figures, responded, voice mechanical and cold. Irrelevant. Return or be neutralized. Leon felt the pressure in the air change, heavy and electric. Instinctively, he moved closer to Avalora. The figure's head tilted slightly as if calculating him, measuring his worth. "This is your only warning," it said. Leon raised the defense shield, the small device sparking to life with a shimmer of blue light. "You'll have to go through me." The figure lunged. Time seemed to fracture. Leon barely registered the movement before Avalora was there, intercepting the blow with a sweep of her arm that sent the attacker sprawling backward. Another figure moved in from the side, firing a burst of crackling energy that splintered the rooftop tiles where Leon had been standing a moment before. Adrenaline roared through him. He ducked, rolled, barely avoiding a second shot. Avalora fought like a storm, every movement precise, devastating. Leon wasn't useless. He used the shield to deflect smaller attacks, keeping the third figure off balance. But it was clear they were outmatched. The Excordon enforcers were built for this. Destruction, division, obedience. A blast caught Avalora in the side, sending her sprawling with a cry that stabbed into Leon's chest like a knife. He raced to her, skidding across. Broken tiles. She pushed herself up, blood blue and bright, trickling from the corner of her mouth. Leon gripped her hand tightly. "We have to run." "No." Her voice was ragged but firm. "We have to finish it." The lead figure advanced, raising a weapon that shimmered with lethal energy. There would be no second chances. Leon didn't think. He moved on instinct, dragging Avalora behind the remnants of the stairwell wall. They crouched together, breaths ragged. "We're out of time," he said. "There's one way." Avalora whispered. Her eyes found his, burning with desperate, brilliant resolve. A full merge. He didn't understand what that meant, but he understood her urgency, the way her hands shook as she pressed them to his temples. "This will either save us," she said, "or destroy us." Leon took a breath and nodded. In that final instant before the world exploded into light, he realized something with perfect clarity. If he had to choose again, knowing everything he now knew, the danger, the terror, the impossible beauty of it all, he would still choose her, every time. The rooftop vanished. The sky cracked open, and the bond leapt from possibility into reality. The light swallowed him whole. It wasn't like anything Leon had ever felt, not like pain, not like fear. It was becoming. It was the crackling, molten sensation of every wall he had ever built inside himself, shattering at once. His memories, and hers braided together in an instant. 2 lifetimes, 2 worlds, twining tighter and tighter until they were no longer separate. He saw her first sunrise on Volanthus, violet skies and silver seas. He felt her loneliness across endless corridors of stars. She saw his childhood laughter, the small victories he thought no one noticed, the quiet ache he carried like a hidden scar. They were no longer simply touching. They were one. When the light faded, Leon gasped, staggering slightly. Avalora was still in front of him, but her form shimmered, more solid, more vivid, every detail sharpened by the bond that now burned brightly between them. Around them, the world seemed changed. The colors deeper, the sounds richer, reality itself humming in a higher, clearer note. The Excordon enforcers reeled back. For the first time, Leon saw uncertainty flicker across their faceless masks. What have you done?" one of them hissed. Avalora stepped forward, her hand linked firmly with Leon's. Her voice rang out, clear and undeniable. "The match has been fulfilled. We are no longer candidates. We are bonded." Energy crackled around them, a golden sphere of power that rose from the rooftop and enveloped them. It wasn't a shield. It was a declaration. Leon felt it, felt the way the universe itself recognized the connection, accepted it, sanctified it. Something ancient and binding wove itself into their joined souls, an oath beyond words or species or laws. The enforcers hesitated. One raised a weapon, but it shorted out in his hand, sparks flying uselessly. Another tried to step forward but stumbled, repelled by the invisible force surrounding them. They could not undo what had been sealed. With a low, frustrated hum, the enforcers retreated. Their forms shimmered, distorted, and then vanished into the night sky, leaving nothing but the scent of ozone and the sound of Leon's hammering heart behind. Silence fell over the rooftop. Leon turned to Avalora, still gripping her hand like a lifeline. She looked up at him, and for a long, breathless moment they just existed in the aftermath, two halves of something wholly new. "You stayed," she whispered. "Always," he said, voice thick with emotion. Without hesitation, he pulled her into his arms. She melted against him, her body fitting perfectly against his like it had been shaped for him and him alone. He buried his face in her hair, breathing her in, feeling the wild, electric certainty in his bones. They stayed like that until the first blush of dawn crested over the horizon. Later, they packed their small lives into even smaller bags and left the city behind. There was no reason to stay. The bond had changed them, and with it, their place in the world. They wandered through valleys where the mist clung low and the rivers sang to themselves. They found forgotten towns where no one cared about where you came from, only whether you danced when the music played. They slept under stars so bright and sharp they seemed to cut the sky open. They learned each other. Leon discovered that Avalora sang when she thought he wasn't listening, low and sweet in a language Earth had never heard. Avalora found that Leon had an endless curiosity about the stars. Asking questions she answered with stories and laughter. Their bond deepened, not through ceremony or decree, but through small, ordinary acts of devotion. Bandaging a cut, fixing a broken machine, sharing a blanket against the night chill. They were no longer halves seeking completion. They were whole. One evening, under a sky thick with unfamiliar constellations, Avalora turned to him and said, "Do you ever miss the life you had before?" Leon thought about it for a long moment, then shook his head slowly. "I was breathing," he said, "but I wasn't living. You changed that." She smiled, that rare, radiant smile that still made his chest ache in the best way. "I feel it, too," she said. "This world with you, it is a song I never knew I was waiting to hear." He kissed her then, slow and deep, tasting the stars, the rain, the hope that neither of them had dared to believe in once upon a time. And for the first time since the day she had appeared at his door, Leon knew, truly knew, that this was not the end of his story. It was only the beginning. The human and the alien, the wanderer and the dreamer, together forging a life so wild, so beautiful, that even the stars themselves would someday sing about them. And somewhere, far above, among galaxies not yet charted, the Council's records quietly updated, status bonded, status complete, outcome, love.